The world is not fair. People in power do not want to give up their power. And people in power at various companies and in government do everything they can to protect each other. On the front page of YouTube.com, as I've noted several times in the past few videos, you will see mainstream authoritative sources popping up. This includes channels like CNN, who get hundreds of millions of views because YouTube props them up, because YouTube gives them exclusive interviews, because YouTube bends the knee. They want to make sure they can get sweet, juicy advertisers too, so they throw us under the bus. They tell me I'm not allowed to talk about certain news items. And then when the mainstream press talks about it, YouTube doesn't care. But I can't repeat what they say. In fact, there is a name. I say Voldemort because I can't say the guy's actual name because YouTube will ban me, even though many news networks, including C-SPAN, have already said the guy's name. Now, CNN takes the cake in terms of being the most being evil, liars, and well-connected. You see, they get propped up, they get hundreds of millions of views, and they pump out fake news all day and night. This is one of the most infuriating things in the news that I've seen in some time. Chris Cuomo has been quarantined for some time now. I think like 3 or 4 weeks. The only problem? He's not really quarantined. And we know he's not quarantined. You see, Chris Cuomo and his family and some other woman, we don't necessarily know who these people were, it was 2 women and 3 kids, took a half-an-hour trip to a Hamptons property which was currently under construction. A dude on a bike rode by and saw Chris Cuomo and said, "Whoa, isn't that guy supposed to be quarantined?" And Chris Cuomo apparently started yelling at him, "Hey, who are you? You're there." Chris Cuomo then goes on his Sirius XM radio show complaining about his job, saying he doesn't like what he does, he thinks it's ridiculous and all this other nonsense, but he confirms the bicycle encounter, saying if some guy on a bike comes up and I want to be able to tell him to go shut up and go to hell and all that stuff. Thus corroborating what the guy on the bike said. I mean, where else would Chris Cuomo encounter a guy on a bike? Unless he was I certainly don't think he was sitting on his porch. No, he went out on a trip. He wasn't isolated. He lied. Now, I'll tell you what. If you want to claim you're under quarantine and then secretly go off for Easter Sunday checking out your properties, fine, whatever. The problem I have is that CNN won't admit it. The following day, Chris Cuomo's like, "I just can't wait to get out of this basement." It's a lie. They're all lying. Let me walk you through the lies. Check out this tweet from Cuomo Primetime yesterday at 9:38 p.m. Here's the very moment Chris Cuomo emerged from his basement where he's been riding out coronavirus for the last several weeks. Aw, look at the poor man. Look, I absolutely love this. He emerges. Let me see if I can actually get to play. Maybe not. So they actually film him walking out of his basement. He's like, "This is the moment I've been..." Okay, here we go. Okay, I think I got it. Yeah, so there he is. Walks out of the basement. He's all like, "This is the moment I've been waiting for." He then walks up to his wife. She puts her hands up. He gives her like a surf's up thing. "Can't touch you because you might be sick." Fake news. We all know it. And I love that because I follow Styx Hexenhammer. I don't know if you guys know him. You probably all do. Styx Hexenhammer 666. Because I follow him on Twitter, his replies are always the top. But he responds to this tweet. "I rate this claim pants on fire." That's right. CNN lied. And everyone knows it. Here's a story from Fox News. CNN's Chris Cuomo's reemergence claim from coronavirus quarantine gets panned on social media. Where is the great Brian Stelter and Oliver Darcy, media critics who often just rag on Fox News for being fake news? Where are they? Peddlers of fake news. You know what, man? I am reticent to say the word evil, but I must. Now, morally and philosophically, I'm not someone who typically throws around the word evil because there's so much subjective morality. I don't think all morality is subjective. There are certain things that we almost entirely and exclusively agree on, like, killing is bad. But there are some people who hold moral philosophies where they think the ends justify the means. They are justified in lying because they're the heroes. There are far-left activist groups that think they're entitled to use violence, they're entitled to use manipulation. There are religious groups who feel the same way. Well, CNN isn't doing that. CNN is selling you. You, the viewer, are their product, and they sell you to advertisers. So they use fake news, reality TV trash to make money. Now, the reason why I say evil, CNN is both simultaneously telling you not to watch other channels, like Brian Stelter has done. They're telling you they're the fact checkers, bringing you the real news. while putting out fake news to manipulate you. And it breaks my heart because there are so many people who are washed up in this stuff. Can you believe, not just CNN, but all these outlets still pretending like Joe Biden is mentally available? Like he has the ability to communicate and be the president? This is the craziest thing to me, outside of the Cuomo stuff, that you get Joe Biden, who clearly can't finish a sentence. I mean, the dude was on CNN and he blanked out for like 20 seconds. And what the media then does is when Joe Biden grumbles and rambles on with gibberish, they then piece together and say what they think he was intending to say. They cover for him evil. They will tell you, Donald Trump lies all day, every night. Well, of course, come on. Donald Trump lies. He's a politician. But is he really that bad? Oh, of course not. They're lying. They are lying about literally everything. So while there are real reasons to criticize Trump's administration, they once tried claiming that one of the dudes who worked for him was making a white power hand gesture because he was fixing his jacket. That's the evil of CNN. Now look, everybody has their opinions. You come to my channels, you'll see my opinions. But I'm not here to lie to you. I'm just here to tell you how I feel. And what makes this all so much worse is that that YouTube protects them. CNN should have no ratings. Their ratings are in the gutter on TV. But on YouTube, they have like 270 million views over the past month. 270 million. That's about 5 times what I get. Actually, I'm really impressed by that. So I'm actually happy to say it's only about 5 times. But it's because CNN is being propped up. They run trash segments. It's not news. And they've admitted to it. Let me see if I can, here, let me show you the story. CNN's Brian Stelter crawled in bed and cried over coronavirus, says it's okay to not be okay right now. Let me show you another story. Brooke Baldwin, fighting coronavirus, taught me about the gift of connection. And what's this? Richard Quest of CNN now saying, I have caught coronavirus. I am blessed in that I have few symptoms, just a cough. I am saving my prayers and thoughts for those less fortunate. Stay in and protect lives. Here's David Clinch and some other people, Victoria Arbiter, saying, sorry to read this, stay safe. You know what? Look, first and foremost, I really do think we have a serious problem with the coronavirus. Hopefully things get better. You may have noticed I'm not in my studio. I'll address that. I'm in my van because I'm not sure if I'd be able to fly because we've got a serious pandemic. So it's actually much safer just to reduce contact by driving. I'm driving across the country. So I'm doing my show on the road. I don't believe Richard Quest, and I'm sorry to say it. If he's sick, I really do hope he does get better. But with Chris Cuomo lying about this, and let me show you more. And Brooke Baldwin then saying, oh, I got sick too. I don't believe any of it. It's performative art. It's reality television, and we all know it. Jeff Zucker, the president of CNN, I believe he's the president. What was he doing before? Did you know that he started The Apprentice with Donald Trump? It's fake. It's reality. It's fiction. Jim Acosta is playing a character. He stands up. He personifies all of the things wrong with the press. Brian Stelter and Oliver Darcy are slime. They are evil people. And I am reticent to say that. But for Brian Stelter to get up, he did a segment where he's like, don't watch The Spin. Don't watch Fox News. You got to come to the authoritative news. To then have YouTube prop this up when we know it is in our faces. And they run with it. Fox News is not perfect. They got opinion shows I'm not a big fan of. Tucker Carlson's pretty good. But they have straight news throughout the day. All these other outlets have also published fake news. And it's incredible to me that it's lost on people, that they don't understand what's really going on. It's that bad with the media. One of the things I want to point out I find really funny is that just a few hours before Chris Cuomo claimed he was coming out of quarantine, the Washington Examiner published this op-ed by Beckett Adams. Coronavirus spreader Chris Cuomo got a lecture for breaking quarantine, and he's upset about it. And then this was at 3:41 p.m. And then what happens? The tweet is from 9:38 p.m. on the same day. They put out complete and overt fake news, and they know it. Brian Stelter is now tweeting that part of his segment that we must channel the rage of the American people because it can't be seen. And then I see a bunch of journalists who are supposed to be fact checkers from companies like Storyful saying things like, right on, Brian, that's right. Do a rant hour on television. There's no news anymore. Look, if you come to my channel, I'm going to give you my opinion. I think first and foremost, I'm doing political commentary. But I do try very hard to make sure that my facts are sound and my sources are sound and everything is as legitimate as possible. I want to make sure that when I have an opinion on something, It's based in reality. CNN is doing the opposite. They're actively lying on purpose, and they're getting away with it. Will YouTube do anything about this? No, because CNN has power, and that's all that matters. They're a massive multi-million or billion-dollar company. They're owned by, AT&T or whatever? And so they'll keep doing it, and they'll get away with it, and they'll brag about doing it, and they'll encourage more. I'm not kidding when I say this. When Brian Stelter cries, he's not crying. I don't believe him. When Brooke Baldwin, look what they did. Brooke Baldwin's an anchor for CNN. And she comes out and she's got, makeup on. She's all nice in her house. And she's like, I really learned a lesson about coronavirus. Let me show you this story. See if I actually have it pulled up. CNN host Chris Cuomo shares scary x-ray of his lungs showing excess fluid caused by the coronavirus, but no pneumonia, as he continues to broadcast from his basement during self-isolation. Well, as we now know, this story is false. Chris Cuomo was not really isolating. It was all performance art. But here's the funny thing about the story. Excess fluid, they say. Sanjay Gupta didn't even say that. See, they published an x-ray of Chris Cuomo's lungs, and there's nothing there. Several doctors on Twitter started tweeting saying, this is a normal chest x-ray. I don't see anything. Look what it says. Chris Cuomo says, or the story says, he said without properly understanding what he was seeing, he was in panic. Was he really? Dr. Sanjay Gupta, chief medical correspondent, said the x-ray did not show anything alarming and that he did not appear to have pneumonia. It looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit of fluid, but not something that I would definitely call pneumonia. Maybe a little bit of fluid. Does that mean excess, Daily Mail? No, probably not. Now, I'll give him this. Dr. Sanjay Gupta could have hammed it up and been like, whoa, that's scary. But it was nothing. They planned the show. They showed an x-ray. Chris Cuomo says, I'm scared. I'm so scared. He was lying. On Monday, April 13th, Chris Cuomo was wiping his forehead saying, I still got a fever. It's been a couple weeks. And Sanjay Gupta's like, oh, I'm so sorry, Chris. The day before, Chris Cuomo was out with presumably his family doing these things. Here's what they go on to say. Cuomo explained that his fever began to subside over the weekend, but he felt as though the illness had spread to his chest and he began to move around in an effort to combat the virus. I now know that I can't just take it with this thing, he said, that when the fever spikes, you just want to curl up in a ball and stay there for the next 6 to 7 hours. And you can't. You've got to bundle up your clothes. You got to start drowning yourself in fluids. You got to take the Tylenol. You've got to go after it. If you don't want to get it in your lungs, you got to force yourself to breathe. You've got to get up off your A. You've got to walk around. It hurts. You don't want to do it. Everything in your body is telling you not to do it. It's lying to you. And I know that now. And the more I do, the more I push myself to do, the better I'm getting. So I'm going to take faith in that now. Here's what I see. Chris Cuomo acting like his lungs hurt. You can't get it in your lungs. It's hard to breathe. And Sanjay Gupta's like, your lungs look totally normal. I can respect Sanjay Gupta pointing this out. Now, I will say, where is the media reporters of CNN? Where are the other news outlets to call this out? This is why I didn't want to work in media anymore. This is why I barely want to today. It feels like I'm trying to knock down a skyscraper with a ball-peen hammer, just chipping away. And no matter what I do, I'm making no dents. Now, I get it, man. A decent amount of people watch the content I produce, and I'm very grateful to all of you. I don't care for political parties. I don't care for who wins elections. I care about knowing how things work, knowing what's going on. That's what I like. I grew up watching shows like Star Trek and, Battlestar Galactica. I watched that. Not growing up. That was like a while ago. But I watched that. Many shows where you have this idealistic version of a future where things can be better. And I thought to myself, the best way to solve the world's problems are first identifying the fault lines, the problems, and then once we know where they are, we can fix them. That means we need an accurate data set. And so early on, I was working for nonprofits, and I thought, if I go out, I can help change the world. This was, 10 years ago. And then I realized these nonprofits were lying and muddying the issues, making it harder for people to understand what the problems actually were because these companies felt the ends justified the means. I didn't want to have anything to do with that, so I quit. A few years later, I started, I realized we're talking to some friends and then being on the ground and doing social media that the best thing I can do is help create accurate data sets. By going on the ground and filming live and filming raw and uploading this stuff, people could actually look back and say, here's what happened, at least from one perspective. When you're on the ground, when you're doing journalism, when you're covering stuff like this, people see things in many different ways. And you've got to get all of those angles to try and figure out what's going on. So let me tell you why I think CNN is evil. They are the antithesis of what I hope for and what I want to do. Do I get things wrong? You better believe it. I get things wrong a lot. Do I miss things? Of course I do. I try to find the best sources. I try to break the stories down. I try to make sure that I don't leave anything out that's important to the context of what I'm seeing. But then we get CNN, and we get outlets like them that do the opposite. They try their hardest to manipulate, to create a fake version of reality. How are we supposed to create this idealistic future, to create all this beautiful and wonderful technology, if we can't identify what the real problems are? When you have people like Greta Thunberg, for instance, who comes out and rants about climate change and all this stuff, but ignores these other countries like India and China. I mean, we got to take all of these things into consideration. But you have smear merchants. You have deceivers, liars, and their only goal is to manipulate you so they can sell your eyeballs to the highest bidder. I make money off advertising. I know, like everybody knows, bombastic, sensationalist nonsense makes cash. It really does. And there's things that I could do that I don't want to do, and I won't do it. CNN has no scruples. They'll do it. When I worked for these big media companies, they wanted me to play this game. I didn't want to do it. And because of this, I ended up, I left. These companies never really gave up on me because I think they understood that I have some kind of good vision for technology, methodology, where media is going, and I've been rather successful in predicting this. Early in the day, like in 2011, I started doing mobile live streaming, one of the first people to do it. And it was groundbreaking. All these journalists were cheering for it. So all these companies wanted to hire me. But I didn't want to use it in a way that would be sensational. I'll give you an example. People used to say that with live streaming, there's no way you could fake this. It's purely live. And I said, that's not true, man. These news organizations can send a fake person out to say a fake thing. And you wouldn't know. Just because you're filming live doesn't guarantee it's true. And sure enough, what did CNN do? During some protest, CNN used their own cameraman to pretend to be a protester supporting, I think, Hillary Clinton or something like this. Now, I'll give some respect to Don Lemon because he was like, I know that guy. He's a cameraman. And the camera guy's acting was terrible. So sometimes CNN won't play the game, but it seems like there are people at this company who do it all the time. Now, the problem is I can look back at this and see Don Lemon call out their camera guy pretending to be a protester. And I can say, okay, they didn't get away with that one. And props to Don Lemon for calling it out. I'm not a big fan of Don Lemon. Right now, we have Chris Cuomo, Brian Stelter, Oliver Darcy, all of the producers at the highest levels. Chris Cuomo's their big show. They know he's full of, they know he's lying. Now you're going to have people seeing CNN and believing it's reality. And then we're not going to be able to actually vote on how to solve problems. We're not going to be able to actually solve those problems. And I look to, people like Elon Musk, right? CNN just published this ridiculous fake story about him saying that he didn't deliver any ventilators when he did. And there's emails and tweets from people saying he did. And then they argued the ventilators he sent because they were non-invasive weren't real ventilators. They didn't give us any context. They didn't tell us what was really going on. They didn't help us understand the situation. They just wanted to attack Elon Musk. Why? Elon Musk is one of the most famous people in the world. He's a billionaire, and it gets them ratings. And you know why this really bothers me? First, let me point out Elon Musk has tons of problems. A ton of problems. The dude kind of messes things up quite a bit. He tweets things out, gets in trouble for him, but the dude's also building a gigantic spaceship, and that's really cool. And while we don't want to give the dude a free pass on his screw-ups, we don't need to lie about him to make things worse. CNN's goal is ratings. I'm blessed. I'll tell you why I'm blessed. So long as CNN exists, I got something to rag about, right? You can come to my content, I can make 50 videos like, oh, CNN is doing all this stuff. That's not what I want. That's not my goal. In fact, I would much prefer to just take my van off on the road and go fishing fishing in a lake down in the woods or something. And I brought this up several times. I've repeatedly said, if I ever got banned, I'm not going to go nuts. I'm going to get in the van. I'm going to go down to the water and just go fishing and just say, you know what? And part of me is just so sick of this because it seems like it's an impossible fight. How am I supposed to do anything to CNN? YouTube has got me under a boot. YouTube says, here's what you can and can't say. Here's what you can and can't monetize. CNN gets all of the breaks in the world. They get special access to advertising. They get special access to the front page, and they will lie in your face and spit on you because you are their product. And YouTube says, you're the B tier. We don't trust you. Let me tell you a story. There was something reported by the Associated Press, and this guy lied to the press, and it was a very obvious lie. I reported that it was a lie. YouTube took my video down. 2 days later, the Associated Press retracted the story, and YouTube then put my video back up a day later. Why should I have to be working under certain special provisions, and the Associated Press does not? I don't know. Or CNN, I should say. The AP gets things wrong. That's fine. I like the AP. I do sometimes use CNN as a source, typically CNN.com, because that stuff I can fact check. But what their TV stuff is just fake news reality TV put together by Jeff Zucker. And it's making people see a false view of the world. It's actively making things harder for us. It's making it harder for us to improve the world, to actually solve these problems. It's causing panic. And I'll give one last shout out, because I could rant on the media for 50 years. Bill Maher recently said, this panic porn is going to get Donald Trump reelected. I absolutely think so. Because here's what they do. They know that these stories do well. They know that Orange Man Bad does well. And so the easiest way to explain it, let's say 15 polls come out, 5 of which say Donald Trump's polls go down, and 10 of which say Donald Trump's polls go up. That means you have an upward trend for Donald Trump, and that's literally what's happening. But you'll get websites like, or companies like CNN, they'll say, once again, Donald Trump's approval rating is tanking. And right now, there's a story from the Washington Post saying, Trump is panicking because his polls are crashing. But his polls are higher than they've ever been in the aggregate. Donald Trump's approval rating was in the high 30s and low 40s a year or two ago. Today, it's at 46 in the aggregate, nearing an all-time high. It recently broke an all-time high. So he's still doing better than he's done. The New York Times said back in, I think, August or October, that Trump's base is bigger than it is today. When you ignore these things and only say Orange Man Bad, then regular people see the news and think, wow, things are going really, really bad for Trump. Because they're not seeing the good news, the things that benefit Trump, then they end up with a skewed version of reality. So I'll tell you what, the last thing I'll say on this segment before we go, you got to watch more than just me for sure. And I guess a lot of people have come back to me when I've suggested some other channels, progressive channels. They say, no, because these other channels are just obviously, either like party loyalists or just wrong in their assessment. Maybe I'm that good. I certainly don't think so. I think if I really was that good, I'd have 10 million followers, something like that. Steven Crowder has way more followers than I do. And I think there's a confirmation bias that people seek out. Most of the people who watch my stuff tend to be moderate. I tend to be moderate. Makes sense, right? So I'm not ragging on Crowder. I think Crowder does a fantastic job. I think he's conservative, and I think he has his biases. I actually think he does a really good job in terms of getting his facts straight. And I think he's one of the more honest people when it comes to content. So you can watch. Actually, I'll do this too, because a lot of people have actually criticized me for this, saying that while I often say, you should go watch David Pakman or Jimmy Dore, because I'm trying to tell you to go watch more progressive channels, they're like, you never recommend any conservatives. That's a good point. So, but that's not fair. I think I recommend Stick, Sex, and Hammer all the time as one of the best. He really is good. And Steven Crowder, obviously. You got to watch what you can. And that's the good thing about YouTube. As much as I can complain about them giving these benefits to CNN, the reality is at least I'm able to do what I'm doing. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Otherwise, I'll talk for 5 hours. I got so much more to go through today. There's a lot of stuff happening. Stick around. Next segment will be coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. And before I go, I will just briefly address this again. I'm in the van, finally, on a cross-country trip. We are going to be moving very, very quickly because I'm a crazy person. There were fears that if I tried to fly, for one, a lot of contact. I don't want to get sick. So this is the best way to maintain social distancing. I'm in a big empty parking lot at a rest stop. Nobody's here. Everything's shut down. Still access to food and fuel, so it's fun. It's probably the most fun way to do it. It's going to be stressful, to say the least, because I got to work. I'm working in the van, but I'm really, really glad I have this opportunity. And I'm glad that the work I do affords me the ability to have things like this. So as much as I can be a naysayer, I can say YouTube has been a tremendous opportunity for me. Leaving these mainstream media companies where I was under the rules of these companies that wanted me to lie, that's horrifying. And now with YouTube, I don't have to do that. So while YouTube still is putting pressure on me, they afford me so much more freedom. The reality is you always work for someone. And right now, I can say what I want. I can do what I want. I can make a video. I cannot make a video. But I have to abide by YouTube's rules. The one thing I promise you is that I will never ignore a high-profile, major breaking news story because YouTube says I can't talk about it. If it means I get demonetized or banned, I'll do it. I'll take the precautions I have to take. Like sometimes I'll say Voldemort, but I did make several videos saying his name. They told me I couldn't talk about COVID. I still made 50 plus videos and they demonetized every single one. We'll see how things work out in the future, but I'll leave it there. Stick around. I'll see you all at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out.